We are just learning about the Israeli attacks in Qatar, a country that has been playing a very positive role to achieve a ceasefire and release of all hostages. I condemn this flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar. All parties must work towards achieving a permanent ceasefire, not destroying it. Today's breaking news underscores the importance of the report that we launched today. It lays bare a stark reality. The world is spending far more on waging war than on building peace.
So Antonio Guterres there speaking moments after his office had been informed of what had happened in the Qatari capital, Doha. Confirmation today that, in fact, Israel launched a strike targeting Hamas. By the way, while we wait to bring up our correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to pull up the latest lines because the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has been speaking in the last while, basically addressing the Israeli nation, saying to them, basically, the government of Israel is tonight, or has today, tried to move towards delivering on its goal to go after Hamas, if you will, essentially wherever it is, repeating the words that the action taken by Israel was wholly independent. Netanyahu saying that the strikes can also open the door to ending the war in Gaza. He says at the beginning of the war, I promised Israel would reach those who perpetrated the October 7th attacks. And today, Israel and I have kept that promise. That's Benjamin Netanyahu speaking in the last few minutes. Let's bring in SABC News correspondent in the United States at the UN headquarters for us in New York this evening, Sherwin Bryce-Pease. Sherwin, what we're seeing at the moment are also reports in the last while that the US had been given a heads up from the Israelis before attacking in Doha. What do we know about that?
Well, we expect to hear more, Tembekile, from the White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt. She's due to speak out of the White House at the daily press briefing any moment now. But I can confirm that according to Agence France Presse and several US media, quoting White House sources, that they were given a heads up here by the Israelis before the strike targeting Hamas in the Qatari capital of Doha. There has, of course, been some reaction since then. You heard there from the UN Secretary General. I can tell you also the Prime Minister's office in Israel, basically, in a sense, to shield basically the concern that might now emanate. The line has dropped again, guys, so just a warning, I'm not connected. The Prime Minister's office, Tembekile, in Israel, saying that today's action against the top terrorist chieftains of Hamas was a wholly independent Israeli operation. Israel initiated it, Israel conducted it, and Israel takes full responsibility. And I think you will probably hear that echoed when Carolyn Levitt speaks from the White House later today. Jordan, Lebanon, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia have condemned the attack. In fact, the spokesperson is also for the Qatari Foreign Ministry said the following: the state of Qatar strongly condemns the cowardly Israeli attack that targeted residential buildings housing several members of the political bureau of Hamas in the Qatari capital. This criminal assault constitutes a blatant violation of all international laws and norms and poses a serious threat to the security and safety of Qataris. We also heard from the newly installed President of the General Assembly. The former Foreign Minister of Germany has just been installed as we now embark on the 80th session here of the General Assembly, ahead of the high-level week later this month when President Ramaphosa will be joined by other heads of state and heads of government here in New York. She also weighed in on this strike. This is what she had to say. Let's watch.
The escalation of today is obviously concerning, and I call on all parties to exercise maximum restraint. As required by our UN Charter, the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all member states must be respected and not violated by any member states. We do not need more tension in the region, but intensified diplomatic efforts towards an immediate and permanent ceasefire, an improvement of the humanitarian situations for the civilians in Gaza by the Israeli government, and the release of all hostages held by Hamas.
And still on the situation in the Middle East, latest lines, a senior Hamas member here, Suhail al-Hindi, telling Al Jazeera that the group's leadership survived the attack by Israel in the Qatari capital Doha this afternoon, which another source said happened as negotiating teams, according to Al Jazeera, were discussing a Gaza ceasefire proposal put forward by the United States. Back in Israel, there's response from the Speaker of the Knesset, that is the Israeli parliament, Amir Ohana, who says that basically this is a message to all of the Middle East. As a result, we're seeing response from neighboring countries, as Sherwin was just reflecting for us, the likes of the Saudis, the Emiratis, who've had their fair share of problems with Qatar in the past, tonight condemning the action taken by Israel against a brotherly country. And Sherwin, as I bring you back into the conversation, can we expect anything realistically from the UN Security Council, given what appears to have been, in essence, a violation of Qatari sovereignty and territorial integrity?
Realistically, yes, we might very well expect something from the Security Council in the form of perhaps an emergency session here, given the fact that the territorial of Qatar has been violated here by the Israelis. But in terms of what the security can effect, in terms of changing the calculus on the ground, right? This is an ongoing, a complex situation in the Middle East, most notably in the enclave of Gaza. And the Security Council has proven in almost 2 years of war to be very ineffectual in effecting change on the ground. So yes, there could be some sort of emergency session. As I think I've lost you again here, Thembekile. I do apologize. Lines, technical gremlins here complicating our discussion. But in terms of what the Security Council can do to effect change, that remains an open question. I will also just quote you certain articles from the UN Charter. Chapter 1 and Article 2 of the United Nations Charter says the following: all members shall settle their international disputes by peaceful means in such a manner that international peace and security and justice are not endangered. All members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. So, the prescripts of the UN Charter, Thembekile, are very clear here in terms of the sacrosanct nature of the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And that is certainly something that the UN Security Council is mandated with addressing in terms of its purview in addressing issues of peace and security around the world.
Peace live for us at the UN headquarters in New York. For now, Sherwin, thank you for that update on the situation unfolding in the Middle East tonight.